On my wife's birthday, we went skiing on a snowy mountain, but unfortunately encountered an avalanche. Both my wife's first love and I were trapped under the snow. Due to lack of strength, my wife could only take one person away, leaving the other to wait for rescue. My wife said, "Ziyuan has congenital heart disease. He won't last long in this situation. After we get down the mountain, we'll call for rescue immediately." I grabbed her clothes, crying and begging her not to leave me behind. But my wife broke my fingers one by one, telling me not to make a fuss. She didn't know there was more than one avalanche. I died on that snowy mountain on my wife's birthday. After the avalanche, she left with her first love, telling me to wait for rescue, leaving me alone on the cold mountain. I watched helplessly as Tao Chuiyue and Xie Ziyuan supported each other as they walked away from me. I clearly saw Xie Ziyuan's smugness and Tao Chuiyue's indifference, which deeply pierced my heart. I was trapped alone under the heavy snow mass, feeling oppressed and suffocated, experiencing loneliness and cold, both desperate and frightened. I kept encouraging myself over and over, trying my best to stay calm, conserve energy, and hoping to survive until rescue arrives. I had too much to let go of. I didn't want to die like this. My parents, friends, patients who trusted me, and even the cold-hearted Tao Chuiyue, they all became my motivation to stay alive at this moment. But fate had other plans. This terrible avalanche wasn't just a one-time event. I was buried under the heavy snow mass, gradually losing my breath. Today was Tao Chuiyue's birthday, and skiing was one of her greatest passions in life. I am a cardiac surgeon, usually very busy with work, and rarely have time to accompany Tao Chuiyue. This time, to celebrate Tao Chuiyue's birthday together, I specially used up my entire year's vacation. I thought this would be our sweet time together, but unexpectedly, Xie Ziyuan came along too. Xie Ziyuan has congenital heart disease and isn't suited for such intense physical activity. I thought he wouldn't come, but he did anyway. Although I was concerned about the relationship between Tao Chuiyue and Xie Ziyuan, I didn't want to spoil the fun on this joyful day. Despite his poor health, Xie Ziyuan had a special talent for skiing and possessed very professional skiing knowledge. As a result, Tao Chuiyue and Xie Ziyuan chatted happily throughout the journey, completely excluding me. After we reached the mountain top, the temperature was much higher than expected, and soon we heard booming sounds from the distance. Due to my lack of experience, I didn't recognize these as signs of an approaching avalanche. By the time we noticed cracks appearing on the snow surface, the avalanche had already begun. Xie Ziyuan and I were unlucky, getting buried quite deep in the snow. Tao Chu, you ran fast and was buried relatively shallow. She managed to crawl out with great effort. At this time, she only had enough strength to take one person away, and both Xie Ziyuan and I looked at her expectantly. I'm not only Tao Chuiyue's husband, but also her mother's attending physician. I thought Tao Chuiyue would take me with her. However, unexpectedly, Tao Chuiyue's gaze shifted between me and Xie Ziyuan. "Shui Yao, Ziyuan has congenital heart disease. He won't last long in this situation. I'll take Ziyuan down the mountain first. You're physically strong. Wait here for rescue. Once we get down, we'll immediately notify the rescue team to save you." I looked at Tao Chuiyue sadly, unable to make a sound, tightly gripping her mountaineering suit and shaking my head. How could she abandon me so easily? Tao Chuiyue looked at me coldly then, breaking my fingers away one by one, resolutely abandoning me. She said, "Don't make a fuss," and left with Xie Ziyuan. "Chuiyue, don't go." As if they couldn't hear my voice, they didn't even turn around before leaving. I waited alone, until my death, but no rescue ever came. And when rescue finally arrived, I had already frozen stiff and lost my breath forever. I died, but for some reason I hadn't completely passed away. I became a spirit. I followed my corpse down the mountain, then to the hospital, and finally ended up beside Tao Chuiyue. Xie Ziyuan lay exhausted on the hospital bed, his face pale and lips purple, fearfully nestling in Tao Chuiyue's embrace. "Ziyuan, I thought we were going to die on that snowy mountain." The avalanche was truly terrifying. I'd often heard about them before, but this was my first time experiencing one. Speaking breathlessly, Xie Ziyuan continued, "I don't know what would have happened if I had been the one left on the mountain. I'm so glad you chose me." Tao Chuiyue looked at him tenderly. "Ziyuan, of course I would never abandon you. This is a tenderness I've never seen before. At least she has never treated me like this." Meeting Tao Chuiyue was all thanks to my mother-in-law. It was when I had just been promoted to associate chief physician in cardiac surgery. My mother-in-law was my first patient after becoming an associate chief, so I took extra care in treating her. That's when I met Tao Chuiyue. She was tall and slender, with striking beauty, perfectly matching my aesthetic preferences. As we spent more time together, I was drawn to her patient and considerate nature. With my mother-in-law's matchmaking, Tao Chuiyue and I gradually became a couple. We respected each other, and I thought this reserved and restrained personality was just who Tao Chuiyue was. Until today, when I saw her tenderly embracing Xie Ziyuan, I finally realized that she simply didn't love me enough. In Tao Chiyue's feelings for me, gratitude outweighed fondness and far outweighed love. I thought we would knew living together with mutual respect, or perhaps love would grow over time, and Tao Chiyue would fall in love with me. But I never expected Xie Yuan would suddenly return. Xie Yuan is Tao Chiyue's boyfriend. Because both he and his mother-in-law have heart disease, her mother disapproved of their relationship and forcefully separated them. Xie Yuan left without saying goodbye, and Tao Chiyue married me. At this moment, Tao Chiyue and Xie Yuan were holding each other tightly, sharing the joy of surviving this ordeal, as if I had already safely returned from the snowy mountain. Sister Chiyue, brother Xie Yao is still on the snowy mountain, and we don't know if he's back yet. We haven't seen him. Hearing my name, Tao Chiyue frowned. What could happen to Jiang Shuyao? He's healthy, and he's a doctor himself. He's probably already home by now. He doesn't even call to show concern, yet you're worried about him. You're the one making people worry. As she spoke, she reached out and pinched Xie Yuan's cheek, showing an intimacy that she had never shared with me. After I married Tao Chiyue, due to the nature of my work, we rarely had time for married life, let alone such daily intimate gestures. Ever since Xie Yuan came back, it's been completely gone, and Tao Chiyue rarely comes home anymore. The last time I saw her was at my mother-in-law's birthday party, when the family gathered for a meal, and unexpectedly, Xie Yuan came along too. Throughout the entire time, Tao Chiyue had no interaction with me at all, constantly taking care of Xie Yuan during the meal, as if I, her lawful husband, didn't even exist. When my mother-in-law saw this situation, she was so angry she nearly had a heart attack. I kept trying to calm everyone down, and finally, the family gathering ended on an unpleasant note. After returning home, Tao Chiyue still blamed me. Jiang Shuyao, why are you so petty? Ziyuan just came for a meal. It's not like he's stealing your wife. Why are you acting like this? I looked at Tao Chiyue with a heart full of bitterness. I clearly hadn't done anything, and had even been trying to calm everyone down, yet somehow I became the one at fault. Meanwhile, Xie Yuan, who was following behind, whimpered, Sister Chiyue, maybe I shouldn't have come today. Nobody likes me. But I haven't seen Annie for a long time. I want to wish her a happy birthday. Tao Chiyue turned around and comforted softly. Ziyuan, it's not your fault. It's their problem. Since we're not welcome here, let's leave. After saying that, she turned around and glared at me fiercely, then left with Xie Yuan. Watching their departing figures, tears gradually blurred my vision, and my heart ached so much I could hardly breathe. At that time, I thought I might lose her, and now I can be certain that I have completely lost her. Tao Chiyue was very experienced in caring for heart dice. ASE patients, attending to every detail from diet to exercise. Within a few days, Xie Yuan became radiant and full of energy again. This kind of meticulous care was something I had never experienced. Because I am a doctor myself, in Tao Chiyue's mind, I was someone who would never get sick. Once, after working several night shifts in a row, I fainted while eating at home and accidentally dropped my food on the floor. When Tao Chiyue came back and saw me, not only did she show no concern, but she asked accusingly, Jiang Shuyao, why are you so temperamental? I was just away from home for a few days. Why are you so angry? Why can't you be gentler like others? Don't just lay there without saying anything. I know you can hear me. Only when she couldn't hear my voice did she come over and find me in a semi-conscious state. After taking me to the hospital and leaving me with colleagues, she hurriedly left. Before leaving, I heard her answer a phone call. On the other end was Xie Yuan's sweet voice, asking when she would come back, saying he was bored being alone at home. Indeed, she had no time to care for her fainting husband, but had time to cure someone else's boredom. Since Xie Yuan's return, such incidents became commonplace. I knew I could never compare to her unattainable first love. Whenever I recall these things, my heart aches like being pricked by needles, each one precisely hitting my most vulnerable spots. Even now as a spirit, seeing Tao Chiyue carefully feeding chicken soup to Xie Yuan, I still feel heartache, though I can no longer cry. This chicken soup was made by Tao Chiyue herself, something I had never gotten a taste. Just then, there was a knock at the hospital room door. A delivery guy brought in a document, which made Tao Chiyue smirk after opening it. Jiang Shuyao, since when did you learn to play such tricks? Did you think this would make me come comfort you? Hiding for days pretending to be dead, and when you finally show up it's to ask for a divorce. How ridiculous. Looking at the divorce agreement dated today, it's quite ironic since I had already died several days ago. I wonder who sent this document. Tao Chiyue tore up the divorce agreement and took out her phone to call me. If I could speak right now, I would tell Tao Chiyue that I wasn't pretending to be dead. I really am dead. Now you can be together with your first love without any obstacles. I won't be standing in your way anymore. It took a long time before the call was answered. Before the other side could speak, Tao Chiyue immediately questioned, Jiang Shuyao, what's the point of doing this? What's with sending me a divorce agreement? There was still no sound from the other end of the phone. Tao Chuiyue started to become impatient. Jiang Shuyao, are you mute now? Stop playing dead. Finally, my mother's tired and sorrowful voice came through. Shuyao. He's out. Ready dead. Hearing my mother's words, Tao Chuiyue was stunned for a moment, but then sneered. Heh. Well played, Jiang Shuyao, conspiring with your own mother to deceive me. Just because I spent a few days at the hospital taking care of Ziyuan when he was sick? Is that worth making such a dramatic scene about? She hung up before my mother could respond, continuing to complain about me under her breath. Xie Ziyuan reached out his hand and touched Tao Chuiyue's chest. Sister Chuiyue, don't be angry. Brother Shui Yao was just upset when he acted that way. After I'm discharged this afternoon, you should go and apologize properly to Brother Shui Yao. Tao Chuiyue gently touched Xie Ziyuan's hand. Ziyuan, you're so understanding. Unlike that Jiang Shui Yao. I can be discharged this afternoon. Let me buy you a gift when I get out. Seeing this scene made my heart ache terribly. Even for something as simple as being discharged from the hospital, Xie Ziyuan would get a gift. As for me, I had almost never received any gifts from Tao Chuiyue. She always said we shouldn't focus too much on formalities, that just living well together was enough. Now I see it was simply because I wasn't important. After leaving the hospital, Tao Chuiyue went straight to the flower shop. The shop assistant asked her what kind of flowers she wanted to buy and who they were for. She smiled with her lips curled up, looking somewhat proud. They're for my friend, someone who is very important to me. The shop assistant thoughtfully wrapped a bunch of dewy red roses for her. As she held them in her hands, it was as if she was holding her love. Just as she walked out of the flower shop, Tao Chuiyue's phone rang. She picked up impatiently, thinking it must be Jiang Shuyao again. Seeing her expression, my heart filled with bitterness. Was she always this impatient when receiving my calls? Fortunately, it wasn't me on the other end. Tao Chuiyue's expression changed instantly when she heard the voice. What? My mother had a heart attack. Okay, I'll be right there. Tell Jiang Shuyao to go there first. What do you mean Jiang Shuyao hasn't been to work for several days? This is a matter of life and death. She quickly hung up and called me. Jiang Shuyao, you're really something. My mother has been so good to you, and you just because of this small matter. As soon as the call connected, Tao Chuiyue launched into a tirade. Jiang Shuyao, have you no conscience? My mother had a heart attack, and you're still playing dead. Before she could finish, my mother on the other end of the line interrupted. Tao Chuiyue, you're the one who has no conscience. Shuyao is dead, has been for several days now. As his wife, you haven't even come to see him once. Are you even human? Panic flashed across Tao Chuiyue's face. That's impossible. You're all just conspiring to deceive me. My mother on the phone lost her patience too. Explain further. If you don't believe it, come and see for yourself. Tao Chuiyue arrived at the address on her phone, which was the site of my funeral. The red roses in her hands created a stark contrast against the black and white decorations. A wife bringing red roses meant for her lover to her husband's funeral. What a deadly irony. Looking at my black and white portrait hanging in the center, Tao Chuiyue's face was filled with disbelief. She took steps, slowly walking towards the coffin containing my body. At this moment, everyone at the funeral was watching her as she walked while muttering to herself, "This must be fake. You're all acting too convincingly, conspiring with Jiang Shuyao to trick me." When she reached the coffin and saw me lying there with a pale face, she collapsed to the ground. Her body trembled slightly, and she tried to stand up several times, but her legs felt incredibly heavy and wouldn't move an inch. She could only tremblingly extend her finger towards my coffin, then withdrew it, her mouth slightly open as if wanting to say something but unable to speak. After a while, she finally found her voice. How is this possible? Jiang Shuyao was fine, wasn't he? He even wrote and had me sign divorce papers this morning. How could he be dead? With that, she suddenly stood up, forcefully opened the transparent coffin lid, grabbed my corpse and shook it vigorously. Jiang Shuyao, stop pretending to be dead. Wake up right now. Stop pretending. I saw your eyes move. Are you secretly laughing at how pathetic I look? Is that funny to you? Looking at the agitated Tao Chuiyue before me, I suddenly felt very tired. Even though she could clearly see my corpse, she still stubbornly believed I was deceiving her. The staff rushed over, grabbed the frenzied Tao Chuiyue, pinned her to the ground, and went to fix my funeral appearance that she had disturbed. Madam, please accept our condolences. Tao Chuiyue shouted. That's my husband. How can I accept this? Upon hearing Tao Chuiyue's words, my mother rushed over in agitation and slapped Tao Chuiyue hard several times across her face. She angrily demanded, Tao Chuiyue, now you remember he's your husband. Where have you been all these days? Tao Chuiyue said in a daze. But why didn't anyone tell me? You didn't reply to messages, didn't answer calls, and when you finally picked up, all you did was yell. How could I tell you? Didn't I already tell you? Did you believe me? Weren't you still cursing my Shui Yao for being heartless? You spent all day at the hospital with your ex-boyfriend. How could you care about our Shui Yao's life or death? This was the first time I saw Mom so angry. She, who was usually gentle, now looked like a ranting shrew, all because of me. After shouting, Mom broke down crying. I told him not to be with you long ago, but he wouldn't listen. Tao Chuiyue seemed unable to comprehend. That's impossible. I don't believe it. Jiang Shui Yao can't be dead. He was only trapped in the snow for a short while. I notified the rescue team immediately when I came down, and Jiang Shui Yao is a doctor himself. He'll definitely be fine. I don't believe it. At this point, my father could no longer hold back and scolded. You beast! Do you know that you caused the death of my son Shui Yao? After you went down the mountain, the second avalanche began, followed by the third avalanche. Do you know? When Shui Yao was found, his entire body was broken. There wasn't a single spot unharmed. Who knows how much he suffered before his death? As he spoke, my father, a strong man who had been stoic for half his life, could no longer hold back his tears. Seeing my parents in such pain, my heart felt like it was being torn apart. It was my fault. I regret my past selfishness and willfulness that caused my elderly parents such sorrow. If only I had never met Tao Chuiyue. Upon hearing my father's words, Tao Chuiyue's body suddenly trembled. Her breathing became rapid. What? There was more than one avalanche. I thought there was still time. How could this happen? I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to cause Jiang Shui Yao's death. I thought since he was healthy and he's a doctor himself, he would surely take good care of himself and nothing would go wrong. I never expected this. I really never expected this. I thought everything would be fine. As she spoke, Tao Chuiyue covered her face with both hands, tears flowing through her fingers. This was the first time I saw Tao Chuiyue cry for me, grieve for me. If it had been before, I would have been happy. But now, I find it laughable. I'm already dead, and she's the one who caused my death. How dare she put on this show of deep affection here? She didn't cherish me when I was alive, but now she comes to cry after I'm dead. Tao Chuiyue raised her hand and kept slapping herself. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I never meant for Jiang Shui Yao to die. Then Tao Chuiyue rushed towards the coffin again, though this time she was much calmer, just quietly looking at me through the glass. Her gaze traced my pale features, as if doing so would deepen her impression and help her remember me forever. Shui Yao, please wake up and look at me. Just one glance would be enough. Shui Yao, if you wake up, I'll never contact Xie Ziyuan again. I'll block all his contact information to show you. Tao Chuiyue took out her phone and blocked all of Xie Ziyuan's contact information in front of my corpse. I even saw on the screen that just minutes ago, Xie Ziyuan had asked Tao Chuiyue when she would come back to pick her up from the hospital. Shui Yao, if you can come back to life, you can even divorce me if you want. If you can come back to life, you can have anything you want. As long as it's within my power, I'll give you everything. Shui Yao, please promise me. Will you? But I was already dead, unable to answer, never to wake up again. And now, as a spirit, I only wanted to tell her no. Being with Tao Chuiyue was not good at all. I regretted it. But Tao Chuiyue couldn't hear me. She just kept expressing her regrets and longing. Love that comes too late is worth less than grass. Everything was too late. Looking at Tao Chuiyue's affectionate expression, I felt so disgusted I could throw up. If I still had a physical form right now, I would have dragged Tao Chuiyue up and thrown her outside. Her presence at my funeral felt so inauspicious. I feared that with all my accumulated merits, her presence would prevent me from reincarnating. Perhaps others were disgusted by her behavior too. As security came in and pulled Tao Chuiyue out, Tao Chuiyue walked along the street in a daze, still holding the roses she had bought for Xie Ziyuan. She raised her hand and looked at them quietly for a few seconds, then threw them in the trash bin. She then walked to a dessert shop by the road and bought a mango cake for me. Shui Yao loves mango cake the most. I'll bring this back for him. This was the first time Tao Chuiyue had brought back a small gift for me from outside. However, after so many years of marriage, she didn't even know that I was allergic to mangoes, and that strawberry cake was actually my favorite. I followed Tao Chuiyue back home, and everything was just as it had been when I left. Due to being in a hurry, clothes were scattered everywhere, and dirty dishes hadn't been washed. Tao Chuiyue put the cake in the refrigerator and started talking to herself. Shui Yao is always like this, leaving his stuff everywhere, and then he'll call me when he can't find them. As she spoke, she went around picking up the scattered clothes one by one, threw them in the washing machine, and then washed all the remaining dirty dishes. After cleaning up the house, she sent me a message asking what I wanted to eat tonight, saying she would cook for me herself. Looking at Tao Chuiyue's behavior, I wondered if she was going crazy. Tao Chuiyue would never clean up the mess I made at home. She would only complain about why I didn't clean up after making a mess, why I didn't wash the dishes right after using them, and why I didn't order takeout when there was no time to cook. Why isn't Shui Yao responding to messages and not coming home? Could it be that he's still angry with me? She opened the message and sent me an apology text. Shui Yao, I know I was wrong. Please come back. I bought you the mango cake that you loved. Let me cook dinner for you tonight to make amends. okay? Tao Chuiwa sent several heartfelt messages, but received no reply. Suddenly, her phone rang. Tao Chuiwa answered the phone with an affectionate expression. Shui Yao, you're finally willing to talk to me. However, it wasn't me on the other end, but my mother-in-law, Shui Yao. Ziyuan, did you have a fight with Shui Yao? No wonder the doctor who treated me today wasn't Shui Yao. Mom is fine now. You and Shui Yao just need to be good together. Don't go looking for that Xie Ziyuan anymore. Live a good life with Shui Yao. Shui Yao is such a good boy. My mother-in-law spoke highly of me on the phone, making me feel deeply emotional. My mother-in-law is a good person, but unfortunately, she has severe heart disease. I don't know how long she can hold on without me. I hope she won't find out about my death right now. After hanging up the phone, Tao Chuiwa seemed to remember that I was gone, and she lay on the sofa with her head tilted. She was deeply immersed in her own world, perhaps feeling regretful, I thought. But it was all too late now. Tao Chuiwa just lay there until late at night. I didn't know what she was thinking about as I looked around the room. You could say that almost everything in the house bore only my traces, especially since Xie Ziyuan came back. Tao Chuiwa hadn't returned at all. Looking at the cozy house I had decorated, a wave of sadness welled up in my heart, afraid that I would never be able to come back again. I don't know how long I can persist in this state, or if I'm destined to be tethered to Tao Chuiwa's side forever. Just as I was lost in my thoughts, the doorbell suddenly rang, and I hurried to check. When Tao Chuiwa opened the door, Xie Ziyuan immediately burst into tears and threw himself into her arms. Sister Chuiwa, why didn't you come pick me up from the hospital? I felt so sad being alone. Was it because Xiao Yao wouldn't let you? Do you know? Brother Xiao Yao blocked all my contact information using your phone. He covered his mouth while speaking. Is Brother Xiao Yao at home now? Looking at Xie Ziyuan's affected behavior, I truly regret not slapping him a few times when I was alive, letting him put on this act in front of me for so long. After hearing Xie Ziyuan's words, Tao Chuiwa coldly pushed him away. Do you know? Zhang Xiao Yao is dead. Xie Ziyuan opened his mouth in shock. What? How is that possible? Brother Xiao Yao was always fine, could it be? After I came down the mountain with you, there were several more avalanches. Zhang Xiao Yao didn't survive until rescue arrived. He died alone on the mountain. Are you satisfied now, Xie Ziyuan? Xie Ziyuan looked up at Tao Chuiwa, blinking his moist eyes. Sister Chuiwa, I don't understand what you're saying. Xie Ziyuan seemed to not understand, continuing to speak on his own. Actually, I came today because I have good news to tell you. Sister Chuiwa, your period is delayed. Maybe you're pregnant with your child. Hearing Xie Ziyuan's words, I was shocked. Had things really progressed to this point? I thought. Nothing had happened yet, that there was still a chance to smooth things over. But it turns out there's even a chill. D involved. Tao Chuiwa stared coldly at Xie Ziyuan, a gaze that made even me, a spirit, feel chills down my spine. Xie Ziyuan seemed not to notice and said, It's perfect timing since Brother Shui Yao also. Now we can get married. Sister Chuiwa, I've been dreaming of marrying you for a long time. If it wasn't for Annie back then, I would be the one with you now. While speaking, he looked around my house, occasionally showing expressions of dissatisfaction, as if he was about to become the owner of this house. It made me very angry. Tao Chuiwa refused him, saying, My mother is currently in the hospital with a heart condition. We'll discuss this matter later. When Xie Ziyuan heard Tao Chuiwa's words, tears welled up in his eyes. What happened to Annie? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I'll go visit her tomorrow. Don't come. My mother doesn't like you in the first place. Seeing you will only slow down her recovery. You should go home now. I'll contact you when I have time. After saying this, Tao Chuiwa pushed Xie Ziyuan out, regardless of whatever he said. Before he left, I saw the persistent look in Xie Ziyuan's eyes and wondered what else he might do. Unexpectedly, my suspicion came true the very next day. Tao Chuiwa didn't sleep all night. At dawn, she went to the morning market to buy fresh ingredients and made chicken soup to help her mother-in-law recover. Just as she reached the hospital room door, she heard Xie Ziyuan's voice coming from inside. Auntie, why have you always been against me and Sister Chuiwa being together? What's wrong with me? Just because I have a heart condition like you. Auntie, you should understand my difficulties better. I heard the mother-in-law's irritated voice. It's exactly because I understand that I don't want my daughter to go down the same path. You have congenital heart disease that can't be cured. If something happens to you one day, would you leave my daughter alone in this world? Xie Ziyuan's voice became sharp. If I can't be with your daughter until we're old, do you think Zhang Shuyao can? Sister Chuiwa hasn't told you yet, but Zhang Shuyao died a few days ago. He's already dead, and it was because of your daughter. The mother-in-law was shocked by Xie Ziyuan's words. What are you saying? Don't talk nonsense. Shuyao is perfectly fine. No, I need to call Shuyao and ask. At this moment, Tao Chuiwa timely pushed open the door and slapped Xie Ziyuan across the face. You wretch, what nonsense are you spouting? Mom, don't believe it. Shui Yao is fine. He's just been too busy to visit you lately. Xie Ziyuan covered his face and, despite Tao Chiyue's attempts to stop him, continued talking about me. You don't know yet, but on Sister Chiyue's birthday, the three of us went up the snowy mountain and encountered an avalanche. Guess what happened? Sister Chiyue got me down the mountain, but your dear son-in-law Jiang Shui Yao was buried under the snow and died. Tao Chiyue angrily kicked Xie Ziyuan in the stomach, and he curled up on the ground, clutching his stomach in pain. Mom, are you alright? Tao Chiyue's anxious calls brought my attention back to the situation. This was bad. Mother-in-law couldn't handle the news and was having a heart attack. I no longer cared about Xie Ziyuan's condition, focusing instead on how to save my mother-in-law. I reached out toward my mother-in-law, but my hand passed right through her body. I was stunned for a moment, forgetting that I was already dead and could no longer treat patients. The doctor who heard the call bell rushed over. Where's Director Jiang? This is Director Jiang's patient, his mother-in-law. He knows the patient's condition best. These are all my colleagues, and now I'm standing in front of them, but they can no longer see me. Quickly find Director Jiang. This situation is too tricky. I'm not confident. Only Director Jiang has experience in this area. The doctor shouted at Tao Chiyue. Hurry up. What are you waiting for? Tao Chiyue remained silent for a moment, then finally spoke. Jiang Shuiyao is already dead. What? My colleagues let out a cry, but they quickly regained their professional composure as doctors. It's too late to transfer to another hospital now. I'll do my best. Family members, please step outside for a moment. Tao Chiyue and Xie Ziyuan were pulled out by the nurse. Since I was close to Tao Chiyue, my spirit wasn't pulled away with her. After the intense rescue efforts, everything returned to silence as I watched my mother-in-law slowly breathe her last. I'm so angry. If I were still alive, I could have saved my mother-in-law, but there's nothing I can do now. Why did I go mountain climbing with Tao Chiyue in the snow? If Tao Chiyue wanted to be with Xie Ziyuan, we could have just gotten divorced. That way, I would have lived, and my mother-in-law would have survived too. But now it's too late for everything. I watched as my colleague regretfully delivered the sad news to Tao Chiyue and saw her holding my mother-in-law's body, crying uncontrollably. I couldn't do anything. I could only watch. I followed Tao Chiyue as she handled my mother-in-law's funeral arrangements, bringing her ashes back to our hometown to be buried beside my father-in-law. Tao Chiyue knelt before my mother-in-law's grave with reddened eyes, while I floated sadly beside her. I heard Tao Chiyue say, Mom, I will definitely avenge you and Shui Yao. I didn't understand what that meant. Of my death and my mother-in-law's death, one could be called an accident, and the other was due to illness. Neither was murder, so how could there be any enemies? If I had to point to someone related to our deaths, it would only be Xie Ziyuan. Could it be that Tao Chiyue wants to seek revenge against Xie Ziyuan? When my mother-in-law fell ill, the situation was chaotic. I stayed by her bedside the whole time and didn't know what was happening outside. Afterward, I helped Tao Chiyue handle my mother-in-law's funeral arrangements and never saw Xie Ziyuan again. I don't know what became of him. Soon, I saw Xie Ziyuan again. He was taken to the snowy mountain by Tao Chiyue, and I think I understand now what she meant by revenge. Tao Chiyue dragged Xie Ziyuan up the snowy mountain. When he finally came to his senses at the summit and saw Tao Chiyue in front of him, he screamed in terror. Tao Chiyue had a headache from his noise and covered Xie Ziyuan's mouth. Shut up. Keep yelling, and I'll kill you right now. Xie Ziyuan nodded in terror. Sister Chiyue, why did you bring me here? Xie Ziyuan still hoped that Tao Chiyue would let him go. Tao Chiyue didn't respond, just silently staring into the distance, as if lost in thought. Sister Chiyue, it's so cold here. Can we go back? Hearing Xie Ziyuan's words, Tao Chiyue finally looked at him. Cold? This is exactly how cold it was when Shui Yao died. Now you can experience it too. Upon hearing Tao Chiyue's words, Xie Ziyuan began screaming frantically, begging for mercy. Tao Chiyue impatiently covered his mouth. So annoying. Why did you have to come back? If it weren't for you, Jiang Shui Yao wouldn't have died, and my mother wouldn't have died either. So you must die? Only then can they return. Xie Ziyuan shook his head frantically, tears streaming down his face. Tao Chiyue just silently watched Xie Ziyuan until he froze and finally stopped breathing. Tao Chiyue completely lost her mind. She was actually capable of kidnapping and murder. In my mind, Tao Chiyue was a gentle, caring person who showed filial piety to her parents. I never imagined she had such a dark side. Perhaps the devastating impact of my death and her mother's passing was too much for her, causing her mental breakdown and making her current state of mind abnormal. Tao Chiyue brought Xie Ziyuan's body down from the mountain and came to my grave. She knelt on the ground, gently caressing my photo. Shui Yao, I've come to apologize to you. I've avenged you. Wait for me on the other side. I'll be coming to find you soon. As she spoke, Tao Chiyue took out a sharp knife and stabbed herself in the heart. Having been in the snowy mountains for too long, she had developed a high fever and was weak. After a few attempts, she collapsed on the ground. Looking at Tao Chuiwe, who had fainted on the ground, my feelings were complex, unsure whether I hoped someone would come to save her. I wished she would die like this, yet also wanted her to live and suffer. Before I could wrestle with these thoughts for long, other people who came to pay respects discovered Tao Chuiwe. Tao Chuiwe was sent to the hospital, and after waking up, she developed multiple personalities, sometimes herself, sometimes me, and sometimes Xie Yuan. Tao Chuiwe was committed to a mental hospital. Although she frequently switched identities, she showed no violent behavior and actively cooperated with treatment. A year later, she spent more and more time as Tao Chuiwe, and the doctors and nurses thought she was recovering. Taking advantage of the doctors and nurses letting their guard down, she hanged herself in the bathroom. Before she died, she seemed to see me and said, "Shui Yao, I've come to find you." However, when she truly breathed her last, I didn't see her spirit form. Perhaps she had truly died. Before I could reflect too much, a sudden flash of white light appeared before my eyes, and I was taken back to the day when Tao Chuiwe confessed to me. "Dr. Jiang, thank you for saving my mother. I really like you. Would you be with me?" Hearing it again, I finally realized clearly. She didn't call my name, nor did she first express her feelings for me. It was more about gratitude after all. This time, I didn't agree. I shook my head in refusal and went back to the office to transfer her mother's treatment to other colleagues. I didn't want to have any more